What is going on, everybody? I go by the name of Kari, and I want to thank you guys for joining me here today on Sneaker Fetish. We're continuing to celebrate 40 years of the iconic Nike Air Force One sneaker, and today we're taking a look at the first iteration of a retro that speaks to the story of how the Air Force One got here and finally settles the debate who made the Air Force One hot. The question of the day is it worth the price increase for a sneaker that looks pretty much like its predecessor? Without further ado, let's get into it. Boom. And there it is, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Air Force One color of the month. Yes, this is a toothbrush. We're gonna get into all of that. You know, first things first, we gotta talk about the history of the Air Force One just a little bit. We actually did a really in-depth video about the Air Force One a little while ago. I forget which sneaker we were looking at in particular, but we talked about the globalization of the Air Force One, how it actually was about to go off and get canceled and get shelved, and all of a sudden these retailers came back, and we're gonna revisit that history just a little bit after we take a look at the packaging. All right, now one thing I will go ahead and give Nike their flowers for is giving us OG packaging back for the Air Force One. They're actually calling this the Air Force One Retro, which is interesting. I don't think I've ever heard them call an Air Force One or maybe an Air Force One Low a retro before. Correct me down in the comments if I'm wrong, but Air Force One Low Retro is just very interesting to me. But nevertheless, we got OG Nike packaging here from the original Air Force One sneaker. Really nice box. If you guys were around during the days where this was a standard Nike box, this was quite a time. It was a fun time. Inside of the box, we also get special edition paper here. Now, this is the original Nike Air Force One advertisement. If you guys remember back in 1982, they had this really interesting hardwood in the middle of the sea here, and they had the shoe. Of course, you can see just a little bit of the shoe right at the top right there, but nevertheless, we get the OG kind of Air Force One looking advertisement in the paper. Not bad. I'm not mad at the packaging. Now, with the packaging out of the way, let's get back to the sneaker itself. Now, the Air Force One, the classic, iconic, timeless Nike Air Force One, namely the Nike Air Force One Low sneaker in white on white. Doesn't get much cleaner than that. Doesn't get much more iconic than that. This is probably gonna go in time as the back that thing up of sneakers, the Juvenile song, if you're not hip to that. Like, timeless. I'm talking timeless music, timeless sneakers. And this shoe here really is the epitome of what I would consider timeless. It's really interesting how the story goes. If you guys remember, the way the story goes, back in 1982, Bruce Kilgore actually designed the Nike Air Force One. It dropped in 82. It was a basketball sneaker. A lot of people don't even remember the Nike Air Force One being a basketball sneaker because of the way that it was kind of adopted by lifestyle influence and hip-hop culture and stuff like that. But the Nike Air Force One was in fact the basketball sneaker when it debuted. Now, there were a lot of other basketball sneakers at the time that just maybe looked better, maybe performed better, whatever the case was, and for whatever reason, this sneaker was not performing the way that Nike wanted to. Nike was gonna shelf the sneaker until a couple of guys in Baltimore actually was able to bend Nike's ear and convince them to keep producing the shoe. Paul Blinken at Cinderella Shoes and Harold Rudo at Charlie Riddle Sports were able to convince Nike to give them a special run of the Air Force One sneaker because down there it was still super popular. A lot of people in that time were really kind of getting into the Air Force One sneaker down in the Baltimore area, and they just didn't want it to go away. The demand on the sneaker was crazy, so they were able to convince Nike to give them an initial run of 1,200 pairs. That's a lot of pairs of sneakers. 950 pairs went to Charlie Riddle Sports, 250 pairs went to Cinderella Shoes, and the rest was history. It was reported that 100 pairs of the shoe flew out the door on the first day alone. They were able to fulfill the 1,200 pair deal, and then shortly after that, DTLR, or Downtown Locker Room as it was known at the time, jumped in and they formed what was called the Three Amigos, the three retailers that were basically running the game when it came to Nike Air Force One sneakers. Now from there were people that were coming from all over to get their hands on this Air Force One sneaker as far away as New York. They were coming down I-95, right down that famous highway, coming down to Baltimore, buying up pairs. Some people were going back selling them, some people were rocking them, and they started what was called the Color of the Month Club. That meant that every month there was a different color, a different iteration, some weird color combination of the Air Force One that was being released by the Three Amigos, and it caught fire. As a matter of fact, in 2015, Nike gave us an Air Force One Quick Strike Color of the Month pack that was really dope to me, a collection of Nike Air Force One high sneakers with the strap around the ankle, and it was a dope pack. But we're back now in 2022 to pay homage to the Three Amigos and to pay homage to the Color of the Month Club with this, the white on white Color of the Month Nike Air Force One Low. Let's take a little deeper look. All right, starting with the upper of the shoe, not much to talk about as far as color and as far as the shoe itself. It's a white on white Air Force One. So what do we talk about? We talk about the material, else in the small details here. First things first, the leather on the shoe. Not bad as far as the leather goes. I will admit that the leather, maybe if I turn it this way, you'll be able to see it a little bit differently, is a little bit thicker on this pair. It really does pay homage to that OG 1982 Air Force One like they used to make it back in the day with the thicker leather. Some people like it, some people don't like it, but the leather here is a little bit more plush. You can see when I kind of push in on the swoosh here on the lateral side, it's a little bit more plush. It's a little bit thicker. Taking a top down look at the shoe here, nothing really different about the overall shape and silhouette. The only difference that you're going to notice is that because this pays homage to that OG from 82, instead of any dubrays here, you get no dubray and you get that stitch swoosh right at the top of the toe box. On the tongue of the shoe, I do like this detail here. You get the Nike Air Force One on the tongue, but underneath that stitched in gold, you have anniversary edition for the Air Force One. Now, stick a pin in the anniversary edition on the tongue here because there's a lot of Air Force Ones that are getting ready to roll out, and they're all going to feature that anniversary edition to kind of let you know which retro and which Air Force One iteration we're talking about here, because the shoe looks so similar to the other iterations as well. The West Indies Air Force One is on the way out, and those also are going to feature anniversary edition on the tongue tag as well. Moving around to the heel of the shoe, probably my favorite part of this shoe is that old school Nike Air with those big letters stitched on the back of the shoe here. Looks a lot different from the standard Nike swoosh with the air underneath it that we get on the Air Force Ones now, but I really like that homage to the OG pairs like they used to look on the old Air Force Ones back in the 80s. I like that a lot, actually. Let's get to the accessories. First things first, you're gonna get this hang tag here. That's actually a little fold-out booklet here featuring the old school graphics, similar to the packaging paper on the inside of the shoebox here. You open it up, a shoe so revolutionary the world has never been the same, which indeed it is not. And then it talks a little bit more in detail about the shoe itself, a bit of a breakdown. The other thing that we get included with this, of course, is the since 1982 toothbrush. Now, if you guys remember, the toothbrush is the tool of choice that was used to clean your Air Force Ones back in the 80s. You guys all saw Do the Right Thing when the Jordan 4s got smushed by the bike tire, and of course Bugging Out used his toothbrush to try to get the gunk off the shoe. So the toothbrush, cleaning your shoes with the toothbrush, a little bit of soap, a little bit of water, that's kind of been the preferred choice for people, especially on the East Coast, to clean their Nike Airs for a long time. Now, some people even still use the toothbrush to this day. Standard Nike Air Force One outsole, but on the insole of the shoe here, you get kind of that OG looking insole on the shoe as well, with the big Nike Air emblem on the heel. And that's pretty much it when it comes to the color of the month, Air Force One Low Retro. Now, here's the deal about this shoe. Again, iconic sneaker. We all know that it got popularized by Baltimore. New York ended up adopting the shoe up in Harlem. They called the shoe the Uptown at that point, or the Harlems, because that was pretty much the only place that you could find the Air Force One. And then from there, we all know that Nelly went to New York, spent a little bit of time there, adopted the culture, adopted the way that they did things in Harlem, and they ended up taking the Air Force One to the moon with the song Air Force Ones off the Nellyville album. And then before we knew it, we started seeing price increases. Everybody around the world wanted them, and the Air Force One became and still remains one of the top selling sneakers from Nike today. So it's very interesting how they were able to repurpose this sneaker as a basketball shoe that was on its way out to a sneaker like it is today that continues to sell in droves. You can never get enough of a fresh pair of white on whites, but $150 price tag on the shoe. Let's talk about it. This right here is a standard Nike Air Force One 07. If you go to any store today and you ask them for a white on white pair of Nike Air Force Ones, chances are you're gonna get these here. They're gonna come in the gray box and they're gonna look exactly like this. Now, this shoe is $150. This shoe used to be $100 until recently, which now apparently the sneaker is $110. So the question of the day is, what are the differences between these two sneakers, and is it worth a $40 price jump? Let's break it down a little bit. The first thing that of course is going to be the biggest difference here is the materials. Now, basically, you really can't tell that the materials are that much different, and I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I'm kind of partial to the way that it looks on the standard Air Force One a little bit more, as far as just, I don't know, the overall shape of it a little bit different as well. And I kind of like, maybe I'm just used to it by now, but I kind of like the way the 07 looks Air Force One as opposed to the color of the month Air Force One. So for a daily wear that I would throw on my feet, it would probably be the 07. Now, the other difference, of course, is that you have the metal dubray on the Air Force One 07 as opposed to the stitch swoosh on the color of the month version, paying homage to that stitch swoosh back in 82. Again, not gonna lie, the 07 wins for this because I like that silver dubray. That's just me. Now, of course, the 07 doesn't come with the toothbrush, the OG packaging, or the booklet here, but again, so with all that said, is the color of the month worth a $40 price jump when you compare them to the 07 Air Force One? In my opinion, not for the white on white version. Now, there are other versions of the color of the month that are coming out that, thank goodness, they actually pay homage to those other color of the month sneakers from 2015. I like those a lot, and I'm gonna probably be getting my hands on those. But for now, is it worth it? Nah, I would stick with the $110 version. But that's just me. I don't know, it feels like it's a bit of a money grab, but you guys can sound off down below in the comments and let me know what you guys think about the color of the month, Air Force One. Were these on your must cop list? Did you want to pick these up? Were these ones that you had to have? And is the $150 price tag justified for this sneaker? Sound off down in the comments, let me know. Of course, right down in the comments, make sure that you click on that subscribe button so we can welcome you into the Sneaker Fetish family to make sure you don't miss out on any more heat that comes through like these, because I guarantee you, I got a lot more heat on the way. As always, I want to thank you guys for joining me here today on Sneaker Fetish, taking a look at these with me, unboxing them with me for a couple of minutes. I go by the name of Kari. This is the Air Force One color of the month, and until next time, I'm out.